The main one I'd say was my art class. I really, art was like a double period class, so it was quite long compared to the other classes. And I'd get in there and I'd be like, okay, this is gonna be my chance during the day to just, be creative and put my energy on the page. And it was like, no, you can't. It was this very stringent, color inside the lines, and I understand the concept because I also say it sometimes of learning to color inside the lines before you color outside the lines. But I think being too stringent on that it prevents genius from showing early, and I think it also prevents people from really going down a path that might be their thing.
We're all inspired by our human connection that arises when we share food with others. So what's on your heart becomes a hub for truly heartfelt conversation.
Tertulia, as they say in Spanish, fostering genuine bonds between individuals, creating that sense of community and connection.
I'm Paul Jacobs, your podcast co-host, ready to inspire you by conversations that nourish the soul as we go beyond the plate.
I'm Daniel Patiño, welcoming you to join us for some truly inspiring Tertulia. Get ready to satisfy that craving for connection and inspiration as we dive into topics that not only broaden your perspective, but also deepen your understanding of lives of families in Latin America, the Caribbean, or even in your own backyard. So wherever our conversations take us, come along for the ride and let's go beyond the plate together. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Plate. As you well know, Paul Jacobs is to my side.
Hey, that's me.
And to his side is me, Danny.
The one talking.
The only one talking, right? Well, you know what? I since we're back into school, this whole back to school mayhem has got me just another play. Sometimes I feel like life is just one big temperature gauge, right? And always either get busy or we're going to be burning hot. It's one of the two, right?
Are you talking about the school or the perpetual heat that has been South Florida?
Both.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Both, because it's 81 on my phone and then it says it feels like 101 degrees. So it's really hot, but absolutely. When things are chill, it's all about that like glue vibe, right? Where I don't care what people say, and I don't even care what they want to do, right? It's like my daughters. You want to play with knives and forks and stuff? Go ahead. Just let me watch the game, please. I need to catch up.
This podcast has taken a very different, unique turn.
Follow me here.
This is Parenting 101 do's and do nots.
Follow me here. But totally. But when things get a little complicated, it's like you need to hit give me the like button so I can see through this chaos.
I think I understand what's going on here. This is something's happening. Okay. So
just help me.
All right.
Me asking for help.
For those of you that do not know, Danny had some interesting lyrics in our intro today, and it'll be a really interesting start to our next guest. Our next guest has had really an amazing career that spanned 30 years, working with record labels like Bob Marley's Tough Gong to currently the manager of one of the most recognizable names in reggae music. And I say that not because he's got one of my names in there, but because it is true. Sean Paul. What's more interesting to us, though, is it's not the list of celebrities that he rubbed shoulders with, but it's the path that he took to get there, the obstacles he overcame, the way he's not forgotten what it took for him to get where he's gotten and to continue to pay it forward with others. And that was the thing that really stood out to us. And maybe we get him to tell us that story of what he told that young and upcoming DJ when he handed him 10 records and launched his career, right?
Wow.
So without further ado, Steve Urchin, welcome to Beyond the Plate.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys.
It's great. All right, so first, really quick, before you jump in,
all right,
right off the bat, we want to let everyone know that is your code name, Steve Urchin. Okay.
So code name. He's an agent now.
No. Right. I got some inside. I got some inside information.
All right.
Before Danny jumps in, really quick, tell us, Steve Wilson, about Steve Urchin, your alter ego.
So Steve Urchin is my music business alter ego. It started when I was in my early 20s. I designed a little logo. And then somebody said that logo looks like it should have a name. It looks like a little character. It's actually that there. If you can see it, I don't know.
Wow. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. This is really cool. Holy smokes!
So he became the Mystic Urchin, and eventually what people would do is they either call me Mystic Steve or Steve Urchin, and the latter one stuck after a while, and I liked it. And to me, what a Mystic Urchin was An urchin is something that's ever present. It's always there. Every time you turn around, it's there. Sometimes not in the best of situations, but it's always there. And it's always kind of, it's spiny on the outside, softer on the inside. And then mystically being an urchin, I thought was interesting. Like, just no matter what happened, I'd always be where I was. I'd always be who I was. Oh. So I kind of like that. And it stuck. And I still have that record label. We put music out from time to time. But in my 20s, it was my be all end all.
That's awesome.
And it's on you forever. It's on your skin forever. That's just in case you forget. Look in the mirror and go, aha.
Exactly.
Now I remember my name. But Paul,
I have a pendant that has it on it, but I don't really wear it that much anymore.
Is it anywhere else? Do you have like on your car? Do you have it like on your wall and where all the other plaques are?
That was kind of our main publicity stunt back in the days. We did these vinyl stickers and they were on all the cars all around Kingston. And it was on my car. So I actually do have one on my car. They're few and far between to find now, but that was 25 years ago. They were ubiquitous around Kingston.
So it's a collector's item now.
It is.
So if we find one on eBay,
anybody who has one,
we know where to go.
Well, send me pictures on my Instagram if you see anybody with that on their car.
Well, so of course, anybody who's listening to the podcast as well, if you have a Steve Urchin logo somewhere, either on your body or on your car or on your person, something.
Body.
Hey, I mean, he's got it. He's got it. It's that important. Yeah. Spiky on the outside, soft on the inside. But Paul, you almost gave away the whole story. You don't have to give away the whole story. We just started. We started on the episode. Steve, you've mentioned feeling like a straight C student. Now we're there on the topic about school.
Oh, that's my tribe.
Right? That's your tribe?
Yeah, well, that's my tribe. Right there.
It is. It is. Everybody's a little bit more creative when they're a straight C student. But you felt like you struggled a little bit to fit in the traditional school system. How did that experience shape your view of education?
I find like education to me is I mean to give the background of it is both my parents are educators. My aunts are educators, my uncles are educators. I grew up around academic family. So I think that the basic basis of education is great. But I think that as you sort of get on and people start to flower and show different sides and, show interest in different things, I feel like that's where the education system starts to fail us, especially in the West. I feel like there's not enough impetus put on creative play and creativity as a whole. And I find like people who are like me, and I spoke to a lot of other musicians and artists and people in my industry, a lot of them say similar things that, they sort of didn't feel like there was anything for them in school to sort of push forward what it is that they were interested in, unless you could, read music brilliantly and could play clarinet or violin or something classical. Mm-hmm. We're sort of made to feel that unless you could do the classical art forms, whether it be musically or, like painting. When in art in school, I wanted to do graphics. And the teacher was like, well, before you do graphics, you have to learn to draw still life. And I was just like, I'm never going to be able to draw still life. So that meant season art as well, And then music I was interested in, how do you produce a concert, or how do you build a stage, or how do you, write a press release, or how do you, write liner notes for an album. Like, that's where my interests were. And the teacher was like, well, no, first you have to learn to play a recorder. And that was just something, again, that I wasn't going to be good at, wasn't interested in doing. And as hard as you try when you're in school, when you want to be doing a very specific part of a creative, genre, being forced to do the other parts is very disheartening, and definitely made me feel disconnected, even from art, which is something that I thought I was, good at and was going to be in love with when I sat in art class or music class similarly. And so I feel like education kind of fails us in that way for the really more creative types, and the people who maybe aren't as cookie cutter as, I'm really going to be good at math or science or, history, for example.
Well, you mentioned a couple moments there, but which one was it that you realized that traditional schooling wasn't for you?
The main one I'd say was my art class. I really, art was like a double period class, so it was quite long compared to the other classes. And I'd get in there and I'd be like, okay, it's going to be my chance during the day to just, be creative and put my energy on the page. And it was like, no, you can't. It was this very stringent, color inside the lines, and I understand the concept, because I also say it sometimes, of learning to color inside the lines before you color outside the lines. But I think being too stringent on that just it prevents genius from showing early, and I think it also prevents people from really going down a path that might be their thing.
Sounds like your creative talents really weren't fully appreciated in school. That's what, I don't know. I'm getting that vibe. Did you feel like you fell through the cracks? Did you have that sense of being overlooked?
Yeah.
Did that influence your journey?
I think was interesting, and I think it also happens with a lot of other people like myself, is instead of feeling like you fall through the cracks, you kind of seek the cracks. You kind of say, you know what, I know where I'm gonna belong, and I'm gonna find my tribe, and we're gonna, I drew on desks and stuff like that, and like I felt like there was a rebelliousness to it, and it sort of felt like, well, if your thing doesn't belong in school, I'm gonna have to find a place where it belongs. And so it helped me, I guess, in a sense, it helped me to create a niche instead of just having one made for me to settle right into. So maybe, and in a sense, that's also a growing thing. There is no growth without pain. So
Right.
maybe it was in the long run a good thing.
And did that lead you to pursue something different later on?
Yeah, it definitely did. It definitely, like I said, it made me realize that the conventional path was not necessarily going to be like, oh, okay, you're going to feel you can drive down this road and it's going to fit you perfectly. I definitely realized that I'm going to have to create a path and trailblaze quite a bit. And then like I said, I fell in with a group of people who felt the same way.
Right. How'd you manage that? How did you manage to avoid all those pitfalls and falling through the cracks and just, but what kept you motivated to keep moving forward despite these challenges?
I think just the knowledge of the fact that God wouldn't put something in me that He didn't want to see expressed, and I didn't really know exactly how it was going to be expressed, but I always knew that I wanted to be in entertainment. I liked watching people have a good time. I liked how music made me feel and how it made others feel. And so it's interesting because one of the things I was in high school, like I was the music repository. Like I'd always have the records. And my friends would be like, "Oh, I like this band," and I'd be like, "Oh, have you ever heard of that band?" And they were like, "No," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna bring you a record tomorrow." So it was almost like a record library, and I really helped a lot of people's musical tastes grow and blossom. And I think it also helped people see that, hey, there are other things out there. Just because it's not taught to us in school doesn't mean that there aren't other pathways and aren't other, niches, and there aren't other crowds. Because I think one of the things that was a revelation to me was realizing that the things that I did could be accepted by other groups of people, and it wasn't just, if the teacher said it wasn't good, then that meant it wasn't good. It was also like, well, there's other, there are other people out there who may well enjoy the things that I could create.
It's interesting. So I had a similar experience. What I remember the guys I hung out with in high school. I remember what we were doing in high school. And I remember saying to myself, as soon as this is all done, I'm going to work. I'm still gonna be hanging out with this one and that one and checking out the party on Friday night. But I had somebody in my life, happened to be a guidance counselor, Mrs. Weta Ross. All right. I mean, literally, she's like, I want those college applications on my desk by Monday. She would send me home on a weekend, right? But it was interesting. I never saw myself going to college. I mean, I had the grades, but I just was like, this is done. High school's finished. I'm done. But I realized if it hadn't been someone that pushed me into the next level and I got into college, I would have still been in that same rut. Were you in a rut with the ones that you were in that tribe in high school that if it hadn't been you moved to the next level in college, that you would have found yourself still in that same circle?
What's interesting is I feel like when I went to college, I left some of that circle behind, and when I graduated from college, I picked them back up, some of them. I think the good ones. I think it was sort of a weeding out process. Maybe the ones that were still doing it 4 years later were pretty good at what they were doing, and so therefore, had still stuck around. There are definitely some bad seeds that I avoided. And with me, it wasn't a guidance counselor. It was my parents. They were like, well, unless you can support yourself, you're going to college. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't see any. Again, I looked at all the courses, at the universities that I was able to get into with my straight C average, And I didn't see anything that made any sense to me to spend 4 years studying. I was just, it was a mystery to me. I was like, why am I going to do this? Like, what am I going to do? And then I found mass communication. I did a specialization in TV, which was sort of the only thing I could find that was vaguely interesting to me. And what I think, if I give credit to university for anything, is it teaches you how to think, and teaches you how to process, and teaches you how to take an idea from an idea to a project, and from a project to maybe a job. So that was interesting, like actually shooting things and then editing them and being able to finish it and say, okay, here's a finished product that I actually created. So I found an outlet for creativity that I had previously not been able to find in mass comm. So, I thank God for that, and I thank my parents for pushing me to do it. And there was definitely some kids who were going in a really, really wrong direction, who were encouraging me to go with them at the end of high school. And I think I sort of realized that, it's strange, because sometimes you look back and you go, God, I was just so lost at that time. But then having that moment of clarity, which I can only attribute to, the Holy Spirit coming to you and just saying, okay, I know that most of the bad decisions I just let you make, but right now I'm gonna have to intervene.
Right.
And I tell you, like, skip this one,
Right.
And it didn't happen a lot, but when it happened, when I look back, it was the times when it was really big. And I realized that making that wrong decision at that time would have led me down a path that would have been difficult to return from, and that friends of mine, or former friends of mine, who did go down that path have not returned, and some of them have gone on, off this mortal coil. So I definitely would say that, in a sense, university saved my life.
Steve, you pointed out that there's always someone ready to recruit young people, right? For better or for worse, like you just mentioned. What do you?
Mostly for worse.
Yeah, unfortunately. What do you think we can do to ensure that these young people are drawn into positive and uplifting opportunities rather than, a life of crime?
You know what? I have a quite a strong opinion about something like that. I think that if anything, especially in certain, how can I say, certain spheres and certain traditional, especially very traditional families, there is a tendency to pretend that these negative things don't exist,
right,
or to brush them aside with a very large brush. And I think it's really important that we're very honest with our children. I think growing up, I was told, like, I'm not sure how open I can be on this podcast, but I was told, like, oh, if you do this once, this thing will, you will die, or if you do this once, you'll be addicted, or if you do this once, you'll be a bum on the street. And then when I found out that wasn't true, it made me distrust everything that was told to me by that person or by that set of people. And what that can do is really lead you open to now going down the totally opposite direction, because you're like, well, at least these people are being honest with me, and I think that it's really important to be honest with our children as parents, and with our students, or with the people that we're mentoring. I think we have to acknowledge that there is a glitziness to certain things that will, I sort of call it like bubble gum. Like, sure, it tastes great for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then after that, you realize that you're swallowing, but you're not digesting anything. And you realize it's empty, and you spit it out and you move on. And hopefully, they will have the clarity and the purpose to be able to do that. But I think it doesn't help when we pretend that, just follow the straight and narrow. It's the most beautiful, wonderful way. Sometimes I think we need to acknowledge the reality that there is attractiveness on that, but it's empty attractiveness. And I think that is something that needs to be very honestly addressed.
Amen to that.
We're talking with Steve Urchin, music executive and friend. But what I love the most is your passion for young people because of your own experience. I think that is really, as we hear your heart, has been really the impetus. Like, you were someone that came through some very difficult times and learned from it, and then you want to help others through the same process before they find themselves demotivated, not fulfilling purpose. And you said something, and I want us to really just kind of unpack this again. You said you can't color out of the lines until you color inside the lines. How has that influenced you in your work with youth, in your industry, in everything that you do and everything that you are? How does that influence? Just unpack that for us for a little bit.
You know what? Like, the more I think about that phrase, I think that people take it very literally, meaning you have to learn how to do the thing the proper way before you can kind of like,
Hmm.
you know, get wavy with it, and I think that what's more the truth is it speaks to discipline, right? And it speaks to work ethic, and that's something that like I've always admired, especially in Sean Paul. That's he comes from a background of swimming, and so like in swimming, it's like you're doing just laps on laps, like 1,500 meters of one stroke, and trying to just improve that one little thing, that one little amount,
Yeah.
and I think that that really imbued him with this like really serious perfectionist. I want to do this the best possible way I can, and it's something that I've definitely tried to take on in my life. And so to me, when we say, learning to color inside the lines, it's like learn how to be professional, learn how to show up on time. Just because you're an artist doesn't mean that you're allowed to be freestyle with everything. I still think that you have to show appreciation, you have to show sympathy, you have to show concern. You have to be appreciative of the people who help you along your way. I've seen artists walk into a backstage or a studio and just be really flippant or downright rude to the people who are there, who are like the worker bees, setting up the thing that they're about to do.
Yeah.
And they're acting as if they're like lesser than. And I think it's a lesson that you need to realize that, hey, these people, if not for them, I couldn't do my thing. And so I think it's really important to have that, just the underlying values and work ethic before you start to say, okay, well, I'm a creative, so I can just create, and it doesn't matter who gets hurt or how I do it or if I'm unprofessional or whatever. Like, I feel like that is not the right, that's not the right way. It's not the path I've certainly tried to follow. And I think the artists that I try to work with have to imbue and embody that, or it just really turns me off.
I think, do you tell them right off the bat so that way that doesn't surprise you later, or you just let it happen naturally, organically, so that way you can just tell them later? Like, do you expect that, and then if they let you down, you just kind of go, hey, have you ever heard the phrase "don't color outside the lines," and then you just sit them down? I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think like working with an artist is kind of like getting into a relationship. Like, you got to be very careful, look for the red flags, and don't get too deep, before you realize, because to retrain someone who hasn't been trained properly or who hasn't bothered to train themselves properly is extremely difficult, if not impossible. Like, you have to get there by yourself. I don't think that's something. I don't think discipline, work ethic, and basic respect are things that you can teach a grown adult. It's very difficult.
Okay, so before I turn it over to Danny here to talk a little bit more about some educational initiatives that you've been a part of, I got to ask you, based on what you just said, best story of that great artist, don't names, we got to protect the innocent, keep names out of it, and worst story, keep names out of it. I got to hear the story that embodies what you just said and the story that is like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Go.
I think the good one's easy. I remember when Sean first started getting like that really big international attention, and we kept trying to get these late night TV shows. And every time our PR person would come back and be like, oh, they said they liked the song, but then, they said no, they don't want to book you. They don't want to book you. And it kept happening. And I was like, what's going on? Like, why don't, are they afraid that we're going to come on and speak patois, and, that maybe they won't understand or whatever. And then finally we got one. I think it was, I don't remember the first one, to be honest. So I'm not going to misquote, but I think it was Jay Leno. And we did it, and our band came, and they were early, and like they gave us this really, really early time to show up. We were like, but the thing doesn't start until like 2 hours later. Why are you making us come so early? Okay. And we came at the time that they told us to come, and they were kind of like, almost like, what are you doing here? And we're like, well, you told us to come at this time. And they were like, oh, we thought you were going to be late.
Wow.
And it was like, no, we're here and we're ready to work. And, is everything set up? And when we finished doing the show, the booker came to me and he was just like, you know what? I'm going to actually, he says, you don't know this, but all the bookers for all the major late night shows, we all speak to each other. And we share stories, and we say, oh, don't work with that person. He's a nightmare. or book this person, they're really, really easy. And he said, I'm going to go and tell everybody how professional you guys were and how nice you all were, how polite you were, how appreciative you were of all the things. Somebody plugged something in and, our bass player would be like, hey, thanks for doing that. You know what I'm saying? I think what we did was we left doors open behind us so that now those same shows are like, well, we tried one of those guys and he was great. So let's book another one. And I really hope that the ones that come behind us don't burn bridges for the one behind them. So I think that's the easy one. To say, negative, I think there's just been so many situations where, and the truth of it is, it's usually the artist who's newer and hasn't been doing it for a long time, but has had like a really overnight quote unquote success, because there is no such thing. But like a really hot song, it's kind of like, oh, they feel like they've arrived. And whereas the artists who've been doing it the longer they've been doing it, is the more respectful and professional they are. And of course, that also speaks to the reason why they've been able to do it so long.
I feel like I can say you get more with honey than with vinegar.
Yeah.
Right? I've heard that phrase. Exactly.
You
motivated me to say that.
And make sure you hand Jay Leno's booker a Jamaica Nice t-shirt. Okay, we're on time. Here we go.
Oh, I mean, all of them. There's so many. Like, we're still getting that love. Today's show, Good Morning America, Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Kimmel, done a lot of that.
Hispanic Group! Hispanic Group is an advertising agency focused in the U.S. Hispanic market that specializes in customized media solutions for businesses.
It sure does, desde estrategias de redes sociales hasta publicidad en medios tradicionales. Ofrecen soluciones personalizadas y creativas adaptadas para alcanzar sus objetivos de marketing, all tailored to diverse and rapidly growing segments of the Hispanic population across 42 Hispanic markets in the U.S. and Latin America, huh?
Wow, you get all the great lines.
Hey.
But they use their cultural expertise to create strategies to deliver efficient results. Hispanic Group!
Lleva tu marca al corazón de la comunidad hispana. Take your brand to the heart of the Hispanic community. Hispanic Group.
Their expertise lies in reaching the Hispanic market, leveraging its rich multiculturalism. Hispanic Group combines innovation, cultural insight, and strategic collaboration to drive what? Tangible results for their clients.
I agree with everything you just said.
Now, for more information, you can visit their website. Guess where? HispanicGroup.net.
Okay.
That's HispanicGroup.net, or
I'll say it in Spanish. HispanicGroup.net. We're speaking with music executive Steve Urchin, and like Paul said, I'm going to say it again, friend. You got some good stuff that I'm going to tell my daughter tonight. I'll tell you that. I'm going to tell all my friends about this. You ever heard about crowding outside the lines and just going to sit him down and just play a quick clip of Steve Urchin just preaching. Yeah. Steve, you've been deeply involved with Food for the Poor's youth program and the band camp in Jamaica. Could you share what inspired you to get involved and what you've seen firsthand with how this program has changed lives?
That's the easy one for me. It goes right back to me being in school, and like I wanted to learn to play electric guitar. I wanted to learn to play keyboards or drums, and it was like, no, here's a recorder.
By the way, for the record, I can play Mary Had a Little Lamb on that recorder like nobody's business. I will do it live on this podcast if requested. But go ahead.
Happy birthday! I can do happy birthday.
You worked a straight C student, right? That's some age.
Green Sleeves.
Stuff right there.
Green Sleeves is the other one, or Merry Christmas, something like that.
That's funny. And so for me, it was like when I heard that we're offering inner city community kids an opportunity to come and learn to play an instrument. The thing, it just popped in my mind. I said there's gonna be so many disenfranchised kids who may not have done well on 5 other subjects that are gonna jump at this and are gonna be saved. And are just going to find purpose and really find self-esteem and find value in themselves. And also, music is an escape. I mean, the thing I think that I always I'm constantly surprised by is how much good energy, what would you say? Pop music brings people, right? Like even if it's not about something uplifting in the song, if the song is upbeat and you can dance to it, it's an escape, and you get away from your troubles and your bills and whatever is upsetting you, And like, to me, to have a sanctuary where these kids can go and get away from whatever is going on in their life, you know, was just a magical thing for me. And so when I heard that it was, you know, that it needed some help, I needed some boosting, and Sean as well. When Sean heard that, Sean was immediately the same thing. Like, he was like, in high school, you know, my instrument was my desk. You know, I drummed on the desk, and we had ciphers, and people would jump in and out, and you know, and then, you know, before there were these little keyboards, if you didn't have a piano, what was your chance of ever learning how to play a keyboard?
Steve, you mentioned that the band camp was an oasis for these kids.
Yes.
What does that oasis feel like from your perspective?
That oasis to me was, like I said, it's a place for these kids to get away from whatever is happening in their lives, what might be happening at home, what negative feelings they might be having at school because they're not doing well in other subjects, or whatever is happening in their community, you know, whether it's violence or just, you know, the absence of abundance, getting to go somewhere and escape into music, and music just being a cushion that you can land on, and, you know, sort of get away from yourself if needs be, and get away from whatever is happening in your life, and just really just bury yourself and get lost in the music.
And these kids, they come from areas where, you know, it's the opportunities are slim, right?
To say the least, it's, you know, lack of abundance. You know, to say the most, is present. You know, definitely in their neighborhoods, on their streets. You know, dealing with whatever they're dealing with, whether it's, you know, lack of food, or, you know, scarce resources, or, you know, just oppressive things in their neighborhoods, and connecting with other like-minded people. Like, that's also such a huge oasis. I remember the first time at university where for me, I found it in the back of the library, where there was a bunch of guys who would hang out there and read magazines and pass cassettes around. And I was like, I found my tribe, you know?
In the reference section of the library.
In the back where they hang the newspapers.
Checked out one book. Between 12 of us, I don't think I've checked out one book.
How to Dub Cassettes. Volume 3.
That's the book.
And, just another one for you. Both you and Sean Paul have had a chance to speak with these kids, right? And what are some of the personal conversations or advice you've shared that you really felt that you really resonated with them and that it made a difference?
I think, like, when I'm speaking to someone, and they're kind of saying, okay, so, like, I'm learning to do this, like, what, you know, what's next, you know, and I make them realize that even just learning an instrument is like learning to speak another language. It's like you can now communicate in a whole different way that you never were able to communicate before, and you can say things that you've never been able to say before, and, you know, connecting with other people who want to say similar things as what you're trying to say, you know, can really result in, you know, bands forming. So, like, you know, in the band camp, there has been at least one band. I can't remember the name of the band now, but they played at the I guess the closing ceremony of last year, and I was just really impressed. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And, like, the other thing I say to some of them when I see some of them, maybe not, they see the ones who are doing really well, and they're like, well, I can't play as well as that person or this person. I say, well, do you understand that in the music business, there's, you know, countless jobs. Like, you don't have to be a musician. You could be an engineer, you could be a guitar tuner, you could be a choreographer, you could be a stage manager, you could be a stage tech, you could be a production manager, or you could be a road manager, you could be, you know, a dancer, you could be, and their eyes get wide, and they're just like, they didn't realize, no one ever said to them that, you know, this is an industry, right? This is not just, okay, he who sings and he who plays instrument make money and there's no one else. Like, there's a huge support system that's needed for anybody who's going to make music. So that's something that, like, even for me, when I found that out, was just, like, very freeing and very inspiring for me.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we need a lot more of that.
Yeah.
I'm growing up myself. I never had people like you, man.
No, right? Like, podcasters, like, you know, and now there's social media, so it's social media influencer and social media directors, and, you know, I mean, there's more jobs in the music industry and entertainment industry now than there ever has been. Merch design, you know,
right.
So much. Literally, I could just go on and on and on. And so I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think that what Bandcamp does is it allows those people to find their tribe.
Yeah.
which otherwise they would either not be able to find or really, really have difficulty finding.
Well, Steve, you are our special guest today here on Beyond the Plate, but we have a surprise guest for you who has a few words for you. Derek, get busy.
Having the opportunity to play music is a God-given blessing, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to have graduated from the Food for the Poor Bandcamp program. You know, one of those reasons is because I received my instrument, the very instrument that I practiced throughout the program with. I got to take that home, and that gave me the opportunity to work on my skill even more. It gave me the opportunity to go to different places to play. It gave me the opportunity to be connected more to my instrument, and it gave me a better chance to express myself, whether it be on stage, off stage, in my own personal space. And you know, music is an income generator, so I'm grateful for that. I've also had the experience of going to different places and playing music by myself and with the Blazing Genesis band led by Mr. Jeffrey Brown, our Bandcamp director.
Peter John, one of the graduates from the Food for the Poor Jamaica band camp.
Blazing Genesis, that was the band. Thank you for
Blazing Genesis.
remember the name of the band.
I wish I thought of that name. Like literally, I could have Blazing Genesis. I mean, that is like right up there with Rolling Stones, right up there. I mean, Blazing Genesis. Golly, what a cool name.
Ladies and gentlemen, Blazing Genesis. Oh yeah, it comes out. It comes out.
But you know, as we get ready to close, Steve, I'm just amazed at you've talked about what you believe in. You have illustrated the investment you make in people, not things. You've heard firsthand from students like Peter John. And then, of course, you know, we talk about Sean Paul, who, again, we never even got into the story how you alluded to how you guys met in swim class, right? I mean, imagine, you know, doing the 1,500 meter and all of a sudden it is, you know, blossomed into this career, this amazing career and relationship that you guys have together. But this isn't just a one-off. I mean, look, Sean Paul Foundation in December of 2021, helping 100 families in Red Hills with food and hygiene and care packets and Christmas gifts. Sean Paul Foundation in September of 2020, helping the Romaine Hall farmers cultivate crops in Jeffreytown, St. Mary, rainwater harvesting systems. You know, July of 2020, the Sean Paul Foundation and Food for the Poor delivering food and care packages to the communities in Spring Pass in St. Thomas. Not to say anything about the Bustamante Hospital for Children or government relief efforts helping during COVID-19. And then, of course, the band camp. This is a lifestyle for you and Sean Paul. And this is not something that you just do, you know, accidentally. It's very intentional, right?
Absolutely. I have to make mention of a few people on my team. So I co-manage Sean with Jules Dougal and with Sean's brother, Jason Henriquez, otherwise known as Jigzag. And
Jigzag.
We're a powerful triumvirate, and a lot of things we decide on together. And then we've had a booking agent that's been working with Sean pretty much his entire career, who's Jerome Hamilton from Headline Entertainment. And they have been a huge part of all of those charity efforts. You know, I think you left out a few things. We built some houses with Serena Williams at one point, which you guys were involved in as well. There's a few other things, but every time we decide to do something, everybody in the team is majorly involved, and it's always, I tend to be at the forefront of it because I really like to, you know, as they say, get my hands dirty. I never feel as alive and as useful and as make me an instrument of your piece as I feel when I'm actually involved in physically handing something to someone or being there to see them experience the thing that we've, you know, paid for or set up or whatever. And it, like, every single time it brings tears to my eyes, and I just feel like it's what our purpose on earth is supposed to really be about. And the older I get, is the more of this kind of work I would really like to do. And I feel like people who facilitate and work in charity should be the highest paid CEOs on earth, although they probably would never accept it. I don't see how someone who, moves things around to make money should get paid more than someone who gives things to people who desperately need it. So I think, to me, but I guess their reward is different, and it will come from a different place at a different time.
Wow. That is awesome.
Amen to that. Again.
That is, wow.
Steve Urchin saying amen, amen, amen all this podcast.
I couldn't find a better way to end our time together. And as we close, I don't know if we shared this with you, Steve, but we always end every episode of Beyond the Plate on a positive note. That was good.
Oh, look.
Can we
get him back?
Jobs, okay? I'm not managing you.
Listen, listen, we just made, with that sound clip, we may be the new Blazing Genesis backup singers.
That's right. And just in case, if ever,
Beyond the Plate band. What are you talking about?
Can we please get Jigzag on this, please? Can we get Jigzag to see about this?
Just to say a couple words. Row the boat twice, and that's it. Row the boat.
Well, today's positive note on this episode's positive note comes from the song Call on Me, Sean Paul, the Scorcher album. And I got to read it, but I want you, Steve, to really kind of help us to understand these lyrics. Now, this is a first in history of Beyond the Plate, our first international positive note.
That's right.
First ever international positive note. Okay? So I hope our audience is ready, because we're taking you across to Yad. Did I say that right? Did I get that right? Jeez. My mom was born in Halfway Tree. She's gonna I hope she doesn't. Well, hopefully she doesn't listen to this episode. She's gonna be really upset. Anyway. All right, here we go. Positive note. In a life, if you don't ever have a thought for your brothers and sisters, you have no heart.
Yeah.
Everybody must try for go play them part.
Oh.
More action and less talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It's one of my favorite lyrics. And I think it's very interesting, because a lot of people don't know just how much Sean feels lyrics like that, and how much he would like to do more songs that are like that. And people kind of expect him to be like, oh, you're the dancing guy, and you're the, you make everybody, move, and that's great, and that's wonderful. And like I said, it's a great escape. But the true Sean, I feel like so much more of him is really about, he spends a lot of time meditating and maybe praying. I don't know, in praying in his way about these kinds of things and about these kind of thoughts. And I think he very much doesn't understand it when people aren't supportive of one another, or when people aren't more uplifting of one another, and it really breaks his heart when he sees people suffering, when all it takes is a few of the people who have so much to give a little tiny bit that they would never notice to make these people's lives better. And so I think that's where those lyrics come from. It's how could you live your whole life, see all the suffering around you, and feel like I can't bother, or that's not my job, or the politicians should do it, or or that's just not something I feel like I'm going to address, or it's annoying. These people are annoying me. That is just something it's very hard for us to accept and swallow.
Wow. Steve Urchin, thank you for inspiring stories that have nourished our soul.
Oh, yeah.
And our audience here on Beyond the Plate.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Virtual fist bump. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Plate. We love having you here.
Keep up with us on Instagram and TikTok at beyondtheplate.podcast.
And if you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and give our videos a like. Just search Food for the Poor Beyond the Plate.
Your support means the world to us.
All right, folks. We'll see you on the next Beyond the Plate episode.
I'm waving.